Let me lip sync some Randy Travis, man.
Yeah, forever and ever.
Uh-huh. Oh, all right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hope everybody's had a good week. The weather's been pretty good. It's amazingly how it can still get hot up in the 90s and then get down in the 50s in the morning. See people going to work with a jacket on or a light shirt or something. And I still have yet to put anything over my arms. And but I did one morning run my heater in my pickup. It was kind of chilly. But no, you know, I always sometimes tell you about things, you know, like apologetics. You know, talking about where people use things that happen and stuff, or you know, like the animals being able to travel. I think I used the monarch butterfly a few weeks ago. Well, this week I'm using my finger, okay? Because I took and cut about, a good third of the tip of my finger off this week. And you couldn't believe it by the size of the mark on it, but the fact is if you keep it moist and covered with a Band-Aid, it heals, that skin goes back really fast. But the thing is, though, is I completely cut both second, whatever how many layers of skin you got, but I cut my fingerprint off. But yet, the skin grew back, and guess what? My fingerprint's there again. Now tell me what creation, that other than God, that could make something like that, you know? And we have fingerprints for a reason. Why? Because it makes us unique. Because nobody has the same set of prints in the entire world. And it's the same way too, it's to show the uniqueness of God is like scanning the eye. Nobody has the same eye. And to go one more, nobody has the exact same heartbeat. Tell me that one. Out of the billions of hearts around the world, nobody has the same. All they do is, but yet people's are not the same. Why? Because God made us unique. Very unique. Now, I'm going to do something different today. I'm still going to do it, but I want to put more meaning. And I want to just do 9 itself, just the whole message of 9. But I try to keep, I don't want to bog everybody down just in reading Samuel. I want to try to move to the Bible. Because like I say, read these chapters, a whole chapter at a time. There's some verses or chapters that have some, but not as much meaning as others. And it's sad to say about the Bible, but you know, but some of them affect people differently. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading out of 10 first, and then I'm going to go back to 9, because that's where I want the message to end at, is reading out of 9. Now, in 2 Samuel chapter 10, I'm going to have to skip some of the reading. But it says, in the course of time, the king of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun succeeded him as king. David thought, I will show kindness to Hanun, his son of Nashahasha, just as his father showed kindness to me. So David sent a delegations to express his sympathy to Hanun concerning his father. When David's men came to the land of the Ammonites nobles said to Hanun the Lord, do you think David is honoring your father by sending men to express sympathy? Hasn't David sent them here to explore the city and spy it out and overthrow it? So Hanun seized David's men, shaved off half of each man's beard, cut off half his garments at the buttocks, and sent them away. Now, this right here, what it is it's kind of like choosing your friends. Who's ever had friends that they want to give you some advice, and the advice they give you is not very good? Everybody's had good friends like that? You know, they're, oh yeah, man. And that's what his advisors are doing right here. David is truthfully he's got a good heart. And this guy he's reaching out to this because he knew his father. Now he's trying to be nice to the son and show an olive branch to him. And what does he do? He listens to his advisor. Like, you think he's really sending these men here for sympathy? Or do you think he's sitting here to spy on us because he's fixing to attack us and take us over? So let's do this right here. Let's shave half of their beards off, like right here, down this, and shaved all this off. Shaved all this off, and then cut their outfits off right here. So obviously their business would be showing. And why did they do this? Because he wanted to make David embarrass David. And sometimes people do that. Have you ever tried to be nice to somebody and do something nice for them, and they turn around and they don't accept it, or they just think, yeah, but they don't accept it with a full heart. I can't explain it right correctly. But they don't accept it with a full heart because they think there's something there. They think this is too good to be true. Now, David, what is David? What kind of king is David? He is a warrior king. He has conquered a lot of places and done battle with a lot. 600 men was taking on 3,000 men at times and defeating them. And obviously, he's a really good military leader. And anybody with half a brain, if he sends an olive branch to you, you're going to accept it. Either you could just tell him, no, that's fine, just go, I don't need y'all here. But no, they're like, no, David, we're not going to accept this, but not only that, but we're going to humiliate your people. The people that you sent to us, we're going to humiliate them. Because we have no respect for you, David. None. Zero. And that's the reason I titled this, what was it, a brave and the dumb. Because obviously, here's the dumb part, right? You're challenging a military leader that's very successful. And now, I'm going to jump forward with this. But now these people, they go hire all these other people to fight against David. They hire all these people to fight David, and guess what happens? They get defeated. Why? Because God is behind David. David has God behind him. And that shows when you have God behind you, everything's possible. But these other people, they don't have God behind them. They're still worshiping these false idols and everything else. They can't figure out why their life's going wrong. And I know my life goes really wrong when I start worshiping false idols. I start thinking more about what Sean needs to do, and what God wants me to do. As soon as we start thinking in our own head, we get ourselves in trouble. And that's all I'm going to read on 10, because I really want to focus on 9. And can anybody say this guy's name? David meets who is the title of the chapter. David meets. Come on, Ashley, you were saying it a while ago. Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth is his name. Okay, David and Mephibosheth. David asked, is there still anyone left of the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness to Jonathan's sake? Now, who was Jonathan? Jonathan was David's best friend. He was a mentor to David. They shared a love beyond a woman, is what it says in the Bible. Now, Jonathan's been killed, and now David's finally been accepted as the king of Israel. He's the king of Israel now, and now he's wanting to go down and start taking care of what? God's people. Because what was Saul? He was anointed by God. He was one of God's anointed men. And so now he's trying to show favor. And so he's like, okay. So he wants to show kindness. Now there was a servant of Saul's house named Ziba. They called him before David, and the king said to him, are you Ziba? Your servant, he replied. The king asked, is there no one still left in the house of Saul to whom I can show God's kindness? And now, is he saying my kindness? No, he's saying God's kindness. Because God said, be Christ-like. And when we're Christ-like, we're not doing Michael's kindness. We're not doing Tony's kindness. We're doing God's kindness, because that's what God wants us to be like. Ziba answered the king and said, there is still the son of Jonathan. He is crippled in both feet. We heard about that earlier. Where is he? The king asked. Ziba answered, he is in the house of Machir, son of, boy, they never make names easy in here. Why can't they use like Sam and Bob and David and all this, No. So King David had him brought from Debar, from the house of Machir, son of Amalek. When Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David, he bowed down to pay him honor. David said, Mephibosheth, your servant, he replied. Don't be afraid, David said to him, for I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father's Jonathan. Okay, now when I say brave, why is Mephibosheth being brave? He was staying in another guy's house, so he wasn't living on his own. So he's living in poverty or off of somebody else. Because cripples back then, they didn't have disability, they didn't have all this other stuff. They were beggars. But the fact he was living with somebody had taken him in. Now, when I say he's being brave, why is he being brave? Who's ever watched a show about lions in the Africa? Who's ever watched when you see this male lion, this documentary, and this male lion, he goes and he conquers this other lion's pride, because that's what a group of lions and lionesses are called, is a pride. And they go in and they take over. What's the first thing they do? What's the first thing that king does after he takes over a pride? He kills every cub, male or female. He kills all of them. And then the ones that are big enough, he runs them off. They run off and gets rid of everything. And that's what the kings used to do back then. In that day was when the kingdom was taken over by another person, they killed the whole bloodline. They killed everybody. Why? So they wouldn't have to look over their back. Because if they're all gone, they don't have to worry about it. Who's left? Mephibosheth. And he sees this army, these people coming, and he knows, oh man, it's time. It's time. David's going to come kill me. He's been holding his breath, or, just hiding, or not hiding, but just unable to rest. Because he knows that any time David's going to say, hey, is there any of his bloodline left? And Mephibosheth, instead of seeing these people come to the door, knock on the door and ask for him, and running out the back door, well, he can't run, he's crippled. So I guess he crawl or however, he limp away or whatever. But anyway, he goes and says, here I am. Take me to King David. That would be a scary feeling, knowing that you're getting taken to a place where two things can happen. You could die, or he could just banish you and say, you know what, you're crippled, you're no threat to me, because you cannot take me in combat, so I'm just going to banish you. So Mephibosheth is being brave, and that's what I'm saying, is being brave, because to me, Jonathan was, he loved God. He loved God. And fathers that love God, generally have children that what? Love God. They try to teach their children, because in this day and age, there was not all the distractions that we have nowadays. Nowadays, we have so much distractions with phones and TV and cell phones and all this stuff going on. Back then, they didn't have it, so they could focus on what? Family values. Remember how in the day when we all load up in a car and we go over to Russell's house and visit his family, spend the whole day up there, kids playing out in the yard with your cousins and everything. Then lunchtime comes, you go eat a sandwich or something. Remember those days? We didn't have all these distractions, so we used our time for family. And now that's one of the biggest problems in the world nowadays, is because we don't spend time with our family. I see kids nowadays 3 years old know how to work a phone better than I do. Because as soon as that's bam, there it is, bam, you get a tablet in their hand. They give it to them at such a young age that they don't know no different. But us, we share, and that's what I think Jonathan did. Jonathan shared God with Mephibosheth. He shared it with him, and that's where the love and the bond became between Jonathan and Mephibosheth, and he had God in his heart. So when David came, he's like, you know what? I trust you, God. I trust you. So I'm going to go, whether they kill me or not, I'm going to go. And he goes. And then after David tells him this, he says, I will surely show kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my what? Table. He will always eat at his table. I'm going to come back to that. Mephibosheth bowed down and said, what is your servant that you should notice a dead dog like me? Sounds like he had a lot of self-esteem, don't it? He compared himself to a dead dog. Why? Because he's in front of royalty. David has a palace built. He's royal. He's all this ivory and gold and stuff everywhere, fine clothes. And here Mephibosheth is probably wearing rags and dirty, probably ain't had a bath, ain't been pampered in no way. And now he's standing in front of a king. And now he's telling you're going to eat at my table. You're going to eat at my table. Mephibosheth bowed down and said, daughter. Then the king summoned Ziba, his Saul's servant, and said to him, I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You and your sons and your servants are to farm the land for him, bring in the crops so that the master's grandson may be provided for. And Mephibosheth, grandson of your master, will always eat at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. And Ziba said to the king, your servant will do whatever my lord the king commands his servant to do. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table, like one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth had a young boy named Micah, and all the members of Ziba's household were servants to Mephibosheth, and Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table, and he was crippled in both feet. Now, you know why this is such a, I wanted to really preach just on this chapter alone? Was because Mephibosheth is crippled, he's dirty, like I say, and yet he goes and David gives him everything. And he tells him, you're going to eat at my table like what? One of my sons. What does that remind you of? Does that remind you of your relationship with God? Are you that crippled person? Who has been that crippled person that we didn't think we were worthy? That we did not think we were worthy of God's love. And yet God said, come, sit at my table and eat with me. We've all been crippled. Someone's crippled us inside. I've been crippled a lot in my life. I still do crippling things that make me, I do stupid things. We all do stupid things. But that's why Jesus came here, because he knew we were stupid. And we mess up. We make mistakes. We try to go down the good path, and we see bright light. Oh, I'm over here, you know. Or somebody cuts us off in traffic, and we just like, but it's not that finger, you know. We get mad still. Somebody says something to us, tells us no, and we're like, what do you mean no? I didn't ask you. I was telling you I was going to buy this, and no. I know couples don't ever argue about buying stuff, you know, because my wife, she agrees with everything that I buy. And so sometimes I get frustrated because it's like, why? I want to buy this, but you don't need it. But that's the thing, is God, that's why God said, pick up your cross and follow me. You know, and that's what we need to do. We need to pick up a cross and follow him and realize that we're sitting at his table every day. Every day we get the blessings of sitting at God's table and able to pray to him and say, God, thank you for all that you blessed me with. Getting to see my family yesterday, being able to spend time with my family. My daughter that's fixing to turn 34. Woo! That makes me sound old right there. I have a daughter that's turned 34 years old. And my oldest granddaughter, she's 15. You know? And but that's the thing. You know, that's what happens. God blesses us with this, and it's how we appreciate it. And that's what David is also doing. He's king. He owes nothing to nobody. Saul chased him for 20 years in the desert. And yet he still wants to show favor to Saul's bloodline. That's a humble guy. How many times have we hurt God? How many times have we hurt God and then went years without apologizing or praying or repenting against it? How many times have we done that in our lifetime? And that's what Saul did to David. And David, being king like God, don't get me wrong, his actions were like God. David's not a God. But his actions was God-like. Where he said, I want to show kindness to Saul's bloodline. He didn't owe him that. Like I say, but he invited him and gave him that land. It was his to take, but he gave it to him. And he said, not only that, but you're eating at my table. Who here today wants to eat at the Lord's table? Your hand's up, you're in the wrong place. Because, if your hand's not up, because this is the thing, God, I love it. And that's the reason this hit me so, I'm so emotional on this, because reading this, I realized I was that crippled person. And I was hiding from God. And guess what God did? God came out and seeked for me. And then what he did for you, did he seek somebody out to come to you? Or you just walk into church and say, oh, God, it's time to be a Christian. Give me my Bible. How many of us have done that? Or how many somebody sent God, a person like God to us, and it's like, man, I know that guy. That guy was not a good guy. And now he's going to church and his life looks pretty good. I want some of that. And that's what this verse, this chapter right here, it's hit home to me so much, because I was crippled. And I was hiding. But I'm not anymore. I'm not going to hide from God. What I have to God, I'm going to expose my heart to him and tell him, God, I love you. And I know I sin, I know I make mistakes, but I love you, and I'm glad you're there to pick me up and dust me off like any good father would do. If you would, bow your heads. I'm going to take this time to ask if anybody